There are plenty of uncomfortable questions that you might have to deal with in a job interview. We call them curveballs. And one of those uncomfortable questions can be, are you applying for any other positions? Now, to be perfectly frank, that's actually none of their business, but it's unlikely you would want to answer by saying, hey, that's none of your business. But the reality is, it's quite likely that an applicant is applying for other positions. After all, a sensible person knows that they may not get the job that they really want, and so having a plan B simply makes sense. Now, of course, the question, are you applying for any other positions, could be worded any number of ways. Are you talking with other companies? Are you looking at any other roles? However they word it, they're asking the same thing. They want to know if you're looking elsewhere. And when an applicant is asked whether they're looking elsewhere or applying for other positions, it can tend to make you feel a little uncomfortable, in that if you said yes you are, you might feel as though maybe you're being unfaithful to the position, or you're not really committed, or you're happy just to take any job that you can get. Now, of course, you don't need to feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way, certainly in regards to being unfaithful, because you can rest assured that the company you're applying for is interviewing other applicants. So of course that works both ways. What's important about dealing with a question like that, are you applying for any other positions, is to take into account the timing of when that question may come up in the interview, because the timing of that question can say a lot about the interviewer's motivation for asking that question in the first place. Now, when you're considering how to handle this question, it's really important to take into account when the question is asked during your interview. If the interviewer was to ask you that question very early on, it may suggest that they're already looking for reasons to eliminate you from the process. After all, if they have to put in a lot of time and effort to look at your resume, interview you, compare you to other applicants, and there's a chance that they'll do all of that and you may end up taking a role with another company, they're not going to be too pleased about that. And so they're probably thinking early, should I eliminate this person from the process? So that brings up the question, how do you answer that if they do ask you if you're applying for other roles early in the interview process? Now, of course, if you're not applying for other roles, that's simple, that's easy. You simply say, no, I'm not applying for other positions. Now, you may wish to put some positive spin on that answer by saying something like, no, I'm not applying for other positions. When I saw this opportunity, I wanted to stay very focused on what's happening here. Now, of course, if you are applying for other positions, which, let's face it, is highly likely, a sensible person knows that they may not get the job that they really want, and so you might need to have a plan B. So it's highly likely you are applying for other roles. And if you are, how do you answer that question? Do we be truthful and tell them that you are applying for other roles, and that can carry the risks that we just spoke about, where they may want to eliminate you from the process? However, we can put a positive spin on that. We'll come back to that. Or you may decide to be less than truthful and tell them that you're not applying for other roles. Now, of course, that carries risk as well, because if they find out that you're not being truthful, then it could affect your chances. Let's face it, it will affect your chances of being successful with that job interview, and it may very well damage your personal brand, and in future opportunities, it could come back to haunt you. Okay, so you've decided that you want to be truthful. So how do we word that response? Be truthful, but not damage our chances of success at the same time. Well, the wording of your answer yes can be quite specific, or you might deliberately make it a little bit more general or vague. For example, you would never give specific detail about the role or the company or organization that you might be applying for elsewhere. Instead, you would be quite general about your response and say, look, I am looking for other opportunities, rather than saying, yes, I am interviewing for another position, or yes, I am applying for other roles. Keep it quite general. I'm looking for other opportunities. Now, you might continue on briefly to say, I hope I don't need a plan B because I'm really keen on this role and looking forward to the interview. Something along those lines. So you could potentially get away with saying, yes, I'm applying for other roles, and have it not cause too much damage for you. Now remember, this specifically relates to dealing with this question of, are you applying for other positions early on in the interview? If this same question was to come up later in the interview, that's a completely different situation. Now let's assume that the interview has progressed and we're coming to the end now. And that question of are you applying for other positions has not come up yet. If the interviewer was to ask you that question now, right towards the end, hey, are you applying for other roles? That's a pretty good indication that they're keen on you, that they like what they've seen in the interview. Now think about that. If they have already decided at the end of the interview that you're not a good fit, why would they care if you're applying for other roles or other positions? They probably wouldn't bother asking that question. They're not going to give you the job anyway, so what does it matter? But if they are keen on you, they think you've done quite well, and they think you might be a good fit for this position, now they might be more keen to know whether or not you're applying elsewhere. Now, if you say, no, I'm not applying for other positions, at the end of the interview, that now gives the interviewer or the recruiter plenty of time, a lot less pressure, maybe the opportunity to interview other applicants. They might find a better applicant. And so there's no stress, there's no pressure on them. The balance of power has really shifted to their side. However, if they asked you at the end of the interview if you're looking elsewhere, and you said, yes, you are looking for other opportunities, of course, that would place some additional pressure on them to make sure they make a decision, and fairly promptly. They'll know that if they don't make that decision, they risk losing you to another company. So there's a little bit in that. The timing is very important of when that question is asked. Whether you want to be truthful or maybe less truthful is a decision that you'll need to make. But for me, early in the process, it might be safer to not be looking elsewhere, or to at least word your response in such a way that you're just keeping your options open rather than specifically looking at other positions. Later in the interview, the fact that you might be looking elsewhere, I think could work to your favor and shift that balance of power over to your side of the fence, which is a good thing for you. As always, I hope that information was helpful, and good luck with your interview.